Yeah, this is a response, and I'm posting a response to some of your video that you made as far as you saying that black folks still have the mindset of being in slavery. I haven't had a chance to actually view all of your posts. I think the very first post that I actually did with or posted to was I guess a video that you recorded, I guess maybe a year or so back regarding biracials and stuff like that. You know, your opinion about them and this, that, and the other, in the case may be. Recently, I didn't actually still get a chance to go through every one of your videos that you've done, but excuse me, I had a chance to actually sit through. I tried to really sit through and get and view the video in its entirety. I really did. I really tried to do that. So please forgive me, but I actually had to cut it off kind of like towards the end because there I have a lot of strong emotions about that video that you posted as far as you are saying that blacks have the mindset of slavery. There is one key issue that I need for you to really focus on right now. And I mean, I'm not trying to say this to be mean or anything like that, but I'm trying to get you to understand something. There's a difference between empowering people of your own race to stand up and be proud of who they are. And then there's another issue altogether when you talk about, you know, why white should, you know, or why should blacks should feel this way because of white people doing this or this, that, and the other. There's a fine line that you're really crossing, and really, to tell you the truth, you're really treading a thin line between almost, you know, spreading hate. I'm not accusing you of being racist or anything like that because, you know, some of your posts, some of your things that you mentioned in your video, you know, I agree with some of them, but for the most part, a lot of it is just your perception of the way life is as far as your relationships between white people, you know, and then black people. First of all, everybody knows that, you know, and it's in history books all across America about slavery and what blacks had to endure, you know, the hardships, you know, of just wanting to be equal or just to be recognized in society as just being a quote unquote normal human being. We've been judged, we've been whipped, we've been actually lynched, we've been all of these type of things. But yet still, I mean, and see, one thing about it, that when you're talking about race relations and these type of things, it's a very sensitive topic because, first of all, you know, we're still dealing with the issue of racism in America today. That's an issue that we cannot change, you know, as much as we may want to boot it out of society. You know, it's going to be a part of this country, this place that we live that's called America, because we have people that are still trying to underhandedly pump that stuff into other people's head to believe what things are when they're not really that way. I'm not saying that all of your viewpoints in your video is wrong. I mean, again, those are your opinions. You have the right to feel and express how you express, but you have to be careful about, you know, being. It's like you're trading that thin line between, you know, spreading hate, you know, and then trying to, because see, the thing about it is that in my viewpoint and in my, you know, the way I view your videos is that, you know, you can almost kind of get the general idea of what you're trying to really get towards, but your methods and the way you use them to explain your point of view is just way off base. And then, you know, you step off to the track, then you say, you know, you look at light-skinned black people. I mean, like I say, you know, and one thing about it is that it's hard to not take offense to some of the things that you're saying. And I'm black, you know, we mix with a little bit of this, that, and the other, but for the most part, I consider myself black. But, you know, you have to be careful in how you choose your words and convey your ideas across people. And you know, because one thing about it, you have to understand, this is YouTube. And YouTube, you are allowed to express your ideas and everything. But you have to be careful that you do so in a rational, intelligent, competent manner. And, you know, just from your videos, may have only listened to maybe one or two. You know, you're very passionate about what you say, and there's nothing wrong with being passionate about what you say, but it's how you convey that message across to other people that will really determine whether or not they're going to accept or reject what you have to say. Now, for the most part, I would have to honestly say, you know, you may have me here split 50-50. 50% of what you said I may agree with, and the other 50 I just downright say, you know what, this person needs to be very educated and will, you know, need to go back and really understand what he's saying. And like I said, you know, First of all, I refuse to be inferior to anybody. That's a state of mind. If you have that, even though despite the struggles that black people have made, we have choices now that we did not have when, quote unquote, when black people was just, used for being slaves and, housekeeping and all this other type of stuff. America has changed. Doors have opened. Blacks are moving up. And something about it, it's sad that you still have some people that still want to keep black folks in this little cage that they, and the one thing about it is that all of that is perceived in your mind. You can't ignore what you see on TV and mainstream media, but one thing about it is that all of these things now, we have choices. My choice is, and like I say, is that I can choose to stay inferior to somebody other than me who is non-black. Or I can choose to put that nonsense behind me, not to say that it didn't once existed, but to overlook that stuff and go on and live instead of having to try to keep this mind frame that I'm constantly going to be under somebody's shoe because of the color of my skin. That to me is ridiculous. Not with the choices that's out there now. I refuse to let anybody take my choices away from me. And I will challenge you that it doesn't matter, your social economic background or what have you. You have a choice on what you want to do. You can sit there and preach and teach that blacks still have that inferiority to other people that are non-black if you want to. That's your opinion. That may have been a case back then, but that is certainly not how it is now. And you really need to correct and understand that. Not all black people are inferior. I know I'm not. That's a state of mind. And I refuse to be a prisoner of my own mind and thinking of me that way. Because if that was the case, that means all of my accomplishments, all of my schooling, all of my education, it didn't accomplish nothing. I refuse to believe, most of that stuff that you say in your video, because some of it, honestly, is just most of it is plain garbage. And like I say, speaking as a fellow black person, I would think that you would appreciate and understand the struggle that blacks have endured to come up to where they are these days. And for you to sit there and try to keep black people back into slavery times, to me, that's an insult. That's not only an insult to the black person or the black race society, that's an insult to who you are as a person. You really need to think before you post these videos on YouTube about the relations, black relations, and how they relate to white people or anybody else who's non-black. Because you come across as spreading a bit of hate. Even though you might not agree with it that way, that's the way you come across. It really does. And really, not everybody is down with that. The black movement, all of that type of stuff is done and over with. What happened in the past, we need to let that stay in the past. I want to live for the future. And my future does not involve me thinking that I am inferior to anybody, because that's a state of mind. You need to educate yourself before you post these videos about this. I'm going to continue to follow your videos, and every video that you post that really seems ridiculous, I'm going to call you out on it, because number one, it's senseless. We're trying to create and live in a world where all races can get along. We already know the history of the United States of America. We've read it in history. We've learned it in middle school. We've learned it in high school. But that doesn't mean that we have to keep that hate in our hearts towards anybody else who's not black simply because of what happened back then. That means that you are no better than what happened back then. Why don't you go pack your suitcases and go and live back in the old ages where black people was only good for doing slavery and making babies? You need to wake up. This is America 2010. And you need to understand that. We're trying to get over hate and all this type of stuff. We're trying to live in a world where people will accept you, not for your skin color, but the content of your character. But when you post ignorant things like this, you really have to wonder and understand. I mean, even though you come across as trying to explain something, it's really just nothing more than you just dressing up your ideas because you're racist. And that's a strong word coming from one black person to another black person, but that's the way you come across in your video. And it doesn't matter, what you may say to it. And like I say, I welcome your response video. Please post a response, because I don't understand you. But like I say, again, it was quite an interesting video. I'll give you that. And whether you choose to post or not, like I say, that's not going to stop me from viewing what future posts you may have. So you take care of yourself. Peace.